here today to spend some time with a man who has had a remarkable career, still has a remarkable career in this music business. He's contributed so much to, I won't even call it just American music. It's beyond that. It's world music. He's affected what people listen to all over the world. And he is the kind of person who is giving and loving and sharing. So he's going to be sharing with us today so much of his career that involves work with jazz greats, with popular artists, with American song stylists, with you name it. And what an honor to be in Van's home, complete with the traffic on the other side of the window here, just to make sure that we are very real and very homey. What a wonderful journey this will be. I'm honored to spend some time talking with Van Alexander. Van, thank you.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be any place.
You know, let's kind of start from the beginning. I know you were born in New York, but can you let us in on how things sort of evolved from your youth to the path of following music?
I'll try. My mother was a wonderful classical pianist, and she taught me to play piano. I'd much rather play stickball than practice, so I never became too prolific at the piano, but I was exposed to good music from an early age. And as I got into my teens, I started to listen to the radio, of course, and to all the big bands of the day. This was in the early 30s. Well, even before that, I guess it was late 20s. And I used to listen to the Mills Brothers, how they imitated instruments with their inventiveness. And the big bands of Paul Whiteman and Benny Goodman, and never dreaming someday I would have an opportunity for writing arrangements for them.
Wow.
But yeah, so I was just interested in listening to the big bands of the day.
And can you think back on that first arrangement that you wrote, or how you even first started? I mean, you were playing piano as a youngster. How did that sort of lead to actually composing and arranging?
Well, listening to the radio, I'd hear a song being played, and I thought, gee, that's a pretty good song. And then I heard somebody else play the same song, and it sounded terrible. And I started to think, what's the difference? And then I realized that it was the fellow that did the arrangement that made it different. So I became interested in that, and I started to experiment in high school with 6 and 7 pieces. One of my 8-piece bands got to play for the senior prom of high school, so that was my entree into being a band leader, so to speak. And it was more or less at that time just trial and error. If it sounded good, I'd use that device again. If it sounded bad, I wouldn't. So that was my teenage interest in arranging.
And how did all of this lead to, for instance, your entrance to the Savoy Ballroom?
The Savoy Ballroom, a lot of us teenagers were so-called jitterbugs. We used to love to dance, and the place to dance in New York was the Savoy. I was more interested in the arrangements of all the great bands that played at the Savoy. There were so many great bands, Erskine Hawkins and Teddy Hill and Lucky Millinder, but my favorite was the little hunchback drummer, Chick Webb. And after going there so often, we had sort of a nodding acquaintance, Chick and myself. He'd say, "Hey kid, you're here again?" And I said, "Yeah, Chick, I am." And I would stand around the bandstand and look at the manuscripts and think to myself, "Gee, I got to do this someday." I started studying orchestration with a pretty well-known man in New York. His name was Aro Cesana, Cesana, and I had learned quite a bit from him. Not so much in the jazz medium, but I learned all the whole orchestra, the strings and woodwind and so forth. Anyhow, one night I got up a little nerve and I said to Chick, "I have a couple of arrangements at home. Would you like to try them? I think they would fit your band." And he said, "Sure, bring them down next Friday night." Well, I was bluffing. I didn't have any arrangements, you know. But I went home and did a couple, and with a little fear and trepidation, I went to his rehearsal the following Friday night. And unbeknownst to me, the rehearsal started after the job, so that the job finished at 1 o'clock, and then the guys would break for a little muscatel wine or something, and they started rehearsing at 2. But Chick had some other arrangers, 2 in the band. One was Edgar Sampson, who was a marvelous arranger, and another saxophone player by the name of Wayman Carver. So they rehearsed their things first, and then an outside fellow by the name of Charlie Dixon came in and rehearsed him. By the time they got to my arrangements, it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. And my mother called the police. She said, "My son is at the Savoy. What could they be doing this time of the night?" And she was frantic. Anyhow, they finally got to my 2 things, and the guys were tired, but they played them very well. And Chick loved them, and he gave me $20, $10 each. But he didn't have the money on him, so he took an advance from the manager, Charlie Buchanan, and he paid me $20, and I went home on cloud 9 and 10. So that was my entree to Chick, and of course Ella had just joined the band, and I got to do all her early Decca record things. She had a couple of hit records before our big hit together, but we'll tell about that later.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I'm really curious. So you were writing for Chick Webb regularly then at that time?
Yeah, after my first 2 sales, Chick's manager, a man named Mo Gale, asked me to do 3 arrangements a week at $75. And that was pretty good money. Of course, I did all the copying myself. I never had to write a drum part, though, because Chick didn't read music. But he was wonderful. You know, he'd hear a thing once or twice, and he would embellish the arrangement. We had a wonderful association, and that was really my beginning in the music business. And I was just lucky that I had met Chick Webb.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that you became close friends, or was it primarily a good working relationship?
Chick and I became very close. Had dinner at his house quite a few times, and all he was talking about was his band and his arrangements, and every dime he got, he wanted to buy new arrangements. And so it was a great break for me, and I learned more and more on a hands-on job. And
how did that lead to then? Because you said you'd written some other things for Ella Fitzgerald before your big hit. Do you remember how many pieces you wrote for her and what those things were before the hit? I'm just curious.
Yes, I do. She had a hit with a thing called "Oh Rocket for Me." And then she had another hit with a song called How Soon Do You Have to Know?
Tell me later.
I can't think of it right now. But she had a couple of single hits, And one interesting point, the tenor saxophone player, Teddy McRae, his name was, he was a pretty good arranger himself. But he came out and said that the chick had hired a young white kid who came in with a lot of new ideas and new chords and new harmony and sort of changed the style of the band and sort of put me down a little bit. I couldn't argue with him because the things that I wrote for Ella were strictly commercial tunes, and the chick was smart as a fox. You know, he knew he had a great commercial thing in Ella, and he wanted to do it his way, and he did it his way, and the rest is history. You know.